Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to The Quality Hub, chatting with ISO experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and today I'm here with Krick, Director of Security Solutions here at Core Business Solutions. So glad to have you on the podcast, Rick.
Well, I am glad to be here today.
And we are glad to have you back for part 2 of this webinar on CMMI. I believe last week we ended after going through levels 1 through 3 on CMMI. So if our listeners haven't checked out the podcast yet from part 1 of this series, go back and check that out. But Rick, so what is level 4 and 5? And maybe since those aren't quite as broadly used, you can slim them down a little bit.
Right. And more difficult. So when we look at level 4, we're looking at a quantitative management of your processes. This leads to processes that are measured and controlled using quantitative data.
Okay.
So now we're using data to help us improve our processes. We're analyzing it, collecting more data. So level 4 becomes a little bit more difficult to achieve. And then level 5 is dealing with optimizing. This focuses on continuous process improvement and feedback loops and innovation. So now we're throwing in innovation. So it still uses that quantitative management process of data analysis. So we're just taking it and stepping it up just another level.
Okay.
Ratcheting it up.
Yeah.
And so level 5, very few companies reach level 5. It's a hard level to reach.
I can certainly see why, and it's something that I don't want to compare everything to ISO 9001, but our listeners are probably going to be more familiar with that. It seems like in level 4, it's like when you have a really good quality management system and you're looking at all the data, KPIs, and making data-driven decisions.
Yeah, we have a lot of KPIs.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So just think we're letting our KPIs drive our quality management system, our ISO 9001. It's similar to that in nature.
So I can see why that would be a higher level. So definitely a lot of levels, a lot of things to go on. What are some major challenges that organizations face when they're implementing this?
Yeah, no challenges. No, lots of challenges that we see. And there's some that are, I would say, more common than others. I believe the first challenge is having at least one active project.
Okay.
So you actually have to have a project that you can appraise.
Right.
So it can't be hypothetical because once again, you have to have those artifacts, that evidence that we're meeting each and every one of the practices, whether it is dealing in the area of service, whether it's dealing in the area of development, wherever that is, you want to make sure that you have a project that can be assessed and that it's far enough along in your process that you have information.
Right.
If it's just a brand new project, you're not going to have evidence that you've done a risk assessment or that you have collected any data or that you're on time or whatever it might be, whatever the practices might be. You may not have evidence because you're not far along enough along in that project. So you want to make sure that you have at least one project that is going to be able to be praised by the organization.
I can see where that would be a struggle for some people because you can't do something you're doing new and you've kind of already got to be in there, but not finished with it.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of dovetailing with that, we've seen, especially in government contracts, that if you aren't able to audit the artifacts, that they're in a classified area maybe.
Okay.
That's a problem because the assessors, the appraisers have to be able to look at the information to say, yeah, you're compliant. For example, if we're talking about software development, they'll have to look at your development process. They'll have to look at any of the artifacts, maybe dealing with defect densities. It may have to look at, the actual code itself.
Right.
And a lot of times the government doesn't want non-certified individuals to look at that stuff. So now we got a problem. We have a project, but nobody other than the team that is working on that project can look at it.
Oh, wow.
So that's something to be aware of.
Wow.
Is the artifacts available to be reviewed? And sometimes we see that in the public sector.
Yeah. So like an NDA or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I think finally, the qualified appraiser team. So unlike ISO, In CMMI, you have an appraisal team, and the appraisal team needs to be made up of 4 individuals. These 4 individuals have to go through CMMI training. They have to pass an exam in order to sit on the appraisal team. So sometimes that becomes a challenge finding team members.
And do they have to be part of your company?
No, they don't have to be part of your company.
Okay.
One of the team members would be the lead appraiser,
Okay.
kind of like the auditor
Right.
that we have in ISO.
Mm-hmm.
Leads the appraisal team. And then you have to come up with 3 others. I always recommend have at least one person from your company.
Okay.
Because they know where all the documents are, all that data artifacts are. And then the remaining 2, either the lead appraiser or if you have a consulting company like Core,
Mm-hmm.
can provide you one of those team members.
Right.
So sometimes that becomes a challenge because if you have to outsource it all,
Oh my goodness.
it's
Yeah.
added expense
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
weren't necessarily planning
And you
for.
kind of have to get them geared up on what's going on.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. For sure.
Okay. So this sounds like a pretty heavy lift in a lot of respects. What role does leadership have in successfully implementing CMMI?
Yeah, really important. Leadership will either make or break the project.
I can see how.
So I think top management, there's several things that they can do to aid in making sure that there is a successful implementation.
Okay.
that
What might those
happens.
be?
I think the first thing is on my list would be for top management to be supportive of the program. They need to make sure that the necessary resources are available. That's a big thing.
That
Make
does sound like
sure
a here. Yeah.
that we have the resources that we need to be successful. I think another one is that they need to remove roadblocks.
Okay.
They're there. If there's a roadblock that comes up, let's remove that. Let's mitigate that roadblock.
Right.
So the team can keep moving forward,
Right.
whatever that is. So they have to be involved
Yeah, absolutely.
for this whole process. So
And on board.
on board, absolutely, absolutely. So I think the next thing on my list would be stay involved, stay visible, make sure that you're receiving updates on the
Mhm.
project. Don't have your kickoff and the next time you have any interaction is when I have a benchmark and I
Yeah.
have problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you need to know right along.
Right.
What's going on. Are the meetings happening
Mm-hmm.
on a regular basis? And just being involved and present, being visible, show that you're concerned about the project.
Probably going to take some extra time for you to plan some meetings, reach out,
Yes.
be open to an open door policy where you can be like, okay, tell me about, hey, do you got a minute? We're having a little trouble here. How can you help me out?
Yeah, and you're not going to, if you're not involved, if top management isn't involved, they're not going to recognize the roadblocks
Right.
to help resolve those. So that kind of
Right.
goes back to the first one there.
Yep.
And, there's training involved. They have to be involved in budgeting,
Mm-hmm.
for that training if we're going to have our employees participate. And even during the assessment, it's like a week long, the appraisal period. And it's kind of like your employees are sequestered, if you will.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds you of a courtroom type
Wow.
situation
Wow.
for the appraisal process. So they have to be willing to make sure that if you have employees on your side, that's covered.
So there might be some downtime that they're going to have to expect.
There's going to definitely
So I can
be
certainly
some-
see where that's going to be a resource, or I shouldn't say downtime, moving people over into a position to keep things flowing, or downtime.
Right, exactly right.
So this seems like quite a heavy lift, but what are some of the tangible benefits that an organization can get?
Well, I think one of the biggest benefits, and sometimes you hate to say it this way,
Mm-hmm.
is that you can bid on contracts. If you're in the government sector, without that certification, you can't even bid on it.
Wow.
So I think a benefit is being able to bid on contracts, win contracts that normally would be out of reach for you. So, that's important. I mean, businesses are to make money.
Yeah.
And if you don't have contracts, you're not making money.
Right.
So sometimes we hate to say money. Let's look at the other areas. If there isn't a financial aspect of this, why are we doing this?
Yeah. And what about from a standpoint of continual improvement. There's going to be some benefits
Yes.
like ISO, but this seems very rigid. So if you get to a level 3 where your whole business is involved or most of it, you probably see more benefit than a level 2.
I mean, you're going to see them in other areas too. You're going to see, as we mentioned, we're going to see process improvement because now everybody's on board. We're pulling all in the same direction. We have a process. We've identified it. And once again, since it now is becoming routine, there's fewer mistakes, which means there's less risk.
Right. So you're seeing tangible benefits.
Yeah, you see those benefits. On-time projects. We keep to a schedule because everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. We're all pulling in the same direction. So you can see some real benefits in that area as well. So those are some of the things we see that help companies be more organized and not this ad hoc, flying by the seat of your pants, so to speak. But
being reactive.
Being reactive, exactly. So now we're proactive. We're trying to anticipate what's happening. So really it makes your whole organization run smoother.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Well, this is a lot of information. Do you have anything else you'd want to share about CMMI, or is this pretty much it?
No, I think that gives us a good overview of what CMMI is. Certainly, we could delve into the weeds here, but not in this program.
No, this one's just a high level to kind of let, maybe some of our listeners are looking to get into the government space and they say the CMMI thing, and they're trying to research it online and they're like, what does this actually mean? Well, we gave them some information here that they can determine, is that something I need to do and how hard it's going to be?
And don't be intimidated by it because it is doable. It is a doable requirement that you can meet. And
we have lots of clients that have gone through it.
We do, and all sizes.
Yes.
And from just a couple employee company to more than a couple.
Yeah, more than a couple. Larger ones.
Larger ones.
Well, I really appreciate you being here today, Rick. So much good information.
It was a pleasure to be here.
And we want to thank everyone who's listened to our podcast today. We hope that it's been informative for you. Now, if you're looking for more information about core business solutions, how we can help you with ISO certification, cybersecurity, CMMI, or customized training, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. You can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, be sure to do so. That way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's released next week. Have a great day, everyone.